Most sales reps think the difference between making 5K per month and 50K per month is just getting better at sales. Better discovery, better objection handling, better closing. Now that's part of it, but here's what nobody talks about. 50K per month closer isn't just better on calls. They're optimized in every area of their life. They're not just asking better questions, they're maximizing their show rate, getting upsells, getting referrals. They're even sleeping better, training harder, and recovering faster. They built their entire life around making as much money as humanly possible. And in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the exact difference between a 5K per month closer and a 50K per month closer across 3 key areas. Area 1, what do they actually do on the sales call? What do they do during discovery, objection, and everything like that? Area 2, what do they do outside of the sales calls, but it's still sales related? And area 3, how do they optimize their life? Because here's the truth. The 50K per month closer has their life dialed in. The 5K per month closer is just winging it. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Polk, and I've spent the last 5 years mastering high ticket sales, and I've personally sold over $8 million in commissions across multiple industries with a 90% close rate. I've trained 6, 7, and even 8-figure sales team, and I've helped tons of sales reps hit 50K per month. I could go on, but you get the point. I know what the I'm talking about. So pay attention, let's dive into it. All right, so let's go ahead, let's dive into it. So you just have to understand like broad strokes, like what's the difference between a 5K per month closer and a 50K per month closer. If you're thinking about it just at a high level, every single person that you talk to is a lock, right? They're a prospect, and it's really your job to help them unlock whatever code that they have in their head that's going to go ahead and make them move forward and make a decision that is better for their life, their family, whatever it is, like why ever they're there. Most 5K per month closers, they're just a fucking hammer. Okay, they're following a script, they fall into people's frames, like they're not able to actually connect with people, they have a hard time leading people, and they're typically closing around 10 to 20% of their sales conversations. Because sometimes a hammer will work on a lock, but if it's a really good lock or they don't fall into your frame, you're gonna have a hard time, you're just not gonna close that person. A 50K per month closer, on the other hand, is a lock pick. So they're able to actually connect with people, lead people, and be closing 45 to 75% plus of their actual sales calls because they come across genuine, they're consistent, they're growing in sales and they're growing in life, and they lead themselves and they lead others. So the problem is what most people and most trainers and just most things I see out there is in order to make a hammer into a lockpick, it is a systematic process. And most people, how they treat getting better at sales is just they try to do everything all at once. But the issue with trying to do everything all at once is when you try to do everything, you barely get anything fucking done. And most people who have gotten to the point where they are lockpicks, they don't actually understand or they haven't mapped out in detail what got them to be a lockpick. For example, I know I talked to one of my best friends who's also, doing some sales training and things along those lines. And I was asking him because like, this is something that I'm absolutely obsessed with is how can I explain it? Not only just so people know it intuitively, but they can actually like know it. I asked him like, hey, how do you what do you probe into? Like in this specific instance. And he gave the right answer, at least what I thought was right. And like, we're both really good at sales. And then I'm like, well, how do you know that? He's like, oh, just after taking so many calls, like you just always go that route. And then I'm like, that's not really a good sufficient answer, especially if you're somebody who is teaching other people sales, right? Like, so the way I broke it down, for example, like probing into something was Maslow's hierarchy, right? You always want to go to the lowest form on Maslow's hierarchy because it's going to be the most tangible. Okay. So that's just a short, very quick example of like what I'm talking about here. Because if you don't have a systematic process, you're just hoping and praying you get better. And like you will get better, but not the same rate and not the same amount you could get better if you're actually systematic about it. And this is the same systematic process that, again, like I used to get to a point where, when I was, dead fucking broke to making over 50, 60, 70K per month. And then the same thing that I helped with Nitesh to get over 100K per month, Bruno to help get him over 80K per month, closing 90%. I got Peter here, 47. I got Jax, 37. I have Joanne that made 7K in just 1 week after joining. And then I have Raymond here, who after 2 weeks of us working together, he hopped on a new offer and he broke the monthly record in just 2 weeks. All that is to say, if you have a systematic process, it is repeatable that you can learn. Now, what are the 3 key areas that you need to really make sure you are dialing in to have to be able to make as much money as possible, okay, in sales? Because that's what we're really in it for, is like we're looking to make money.
let's make some fucking commissions. So 3 areas that I was talking about before. We have on the call, we have outside of the call, that is like sales related, and then we have lifestyle. Now, the issue is most people, they're just trying to gunshot it. It's not a systematic approach. So first and foremost, let's dive into like on the call. So on the call, like there is a process that you follow, okay? And here's an overview of what the process is. I've gone in so much detail with this on other YouTube videos. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. But we have the opening, we have their situation, problem, buying decisions, pre-handling identity, future pays, consequence, presentation, commitment, and then we're handling any objections. And most people, what they try to start doing is they just want to learn it in order. But here's the issue. If we just learn it in order, we're not really maximizing what we could be doing. And oftentimes it will hurt you in the short term. And if it hurts you in the short term, it has the ability to hurt you in the long term because you're going to be in your head, right? Like you miss a couple sales. And then because you miss a couple sales, that hurts your confidence, which is just going to hurt your sales overall. So what you need is a systematic approach that is going to hit the lowest hanging fruit first, so you only see increases in the amount of money and the amount of sales you're making. So something I do with every single person like I work with one-on-one is I take them through systematically, not in order of the process, systematically how they should be implementing the process so they only get better. And they only move on from implementing a process once they hit certain KPIs. Okay, so here's the example of it here. Again, we got the opening, the pitch, and I'll run you through this, but then actually have the training here that goes through it in the mastermind as well. So it's like I have that for every single person that I train. And so I'll take you through it, just high level overview of what you need to be doing to make sure you are improving and you're not getting worse. Okay, so how do we go about it on the actual sales call? So the very first thing that we need to really address and you need to understand on your sales calls is authority. The reason why authority is so important is because people naturally, and there's been a ton of studies on this, where they like doctors like told people to shock them. What was that experiment called? I'm slipping off the top of my head. But basically, if doctors tell you to kill somebody, like 70% of people would kill somebody. It's that crazy how willing human beings are to just give into authority. So it is a human instinct. So if you're able to tap into authority just naturally, even if you do not say the right words that are coming out of your mouth, if you say it authoritatively, people will listen to you. And you've probably seen this in your life. Like, you see people either on like social media or whatever it is, like they might be saying absolute bullshit, right? But they say it with such confidence that people believe them. Right? Billy Carson is a very good example, right? The Ancient Alien guys. When he actually went up against somebody like Wes Huff, who was an actual like historian, none of the things he said actually stood up to any type of scrutiny, but a lot of people believed him because he just was saying bullshit with absolute authority. Now, I'm not saying you should be saying bullshit with absolute authority, but just understand authority is a trigger that actually gets people to comply. So, what's the difference between a 5K per month closer and a 50K per month closer when it comes to authority? So 5K per month closers, what can happen is they get bulldozed by prospects. Okay, they seem unsure, they get flustered. Prospects think they know more about their field than the salesperson does. And the reason why that's no bueno is if the prospect thinks they know more than you, it's going to be hard for them to actually trust your judgment. The opposite is going to be true if you're a 50K per month closer. You're in complete control of the conversation. You're seen as an expert in the field and you actually come across as calm and confident. So that's how you should be coming across on your calls. Again, if you're wanting to close at the highest rate possible, that's what we're talking about. Okay. Next is going to be, we need to understand human behavior. So a 5K per month closer, they see people as like they need to be fixed, right? Like these people just need to be fixed. They don't understand what people's true movers are, and they get their frame taken from them often. Okay, a 50K per month closer, they understand people on a deep level of like what actually moves them. And they see people as reasons, and they're able to hold a frame with the prospect no matter who they're talking to. So let's talk about it one by one. So if you're going to sell somebody, you need to know what actually they want, like what actually moves them. What are their core emotional drivers? Every single person you talk to on a sales call has a need that is not being met. People who are perfectly content in life do not hop on sales calls. So if you're talking to somebody and they're telling you they don't have a problem, they're fucking lying to you. So if you understand human behavior and you have the authority, you actually get the real truth out of them. But if you don't have that, then you're going to have a hard time. Okay. Next is like you see people as reasons. The reason why this is important is because if you actually truly understand people, you see them as reasons. What do I mean by that? So, for example, if you are driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off, the less understanding version of that is you get mad at them. You need to fix them. Like, I'm a Karen and I need to tell this motherfucker what they did wrong and I need to fix them. Okay? It's a very emotional thing. If you see them as a reason, you understand that people, even though it might not be good what they did, they actually have reasons for what they did. And nobody is the villain in their own mind. Very rarely. And if you start to actually understand that, you can start to understand people at a deeper level. You understand that they're an actual reason. Like this person I'm talking to, yes, they're an asshole, but there's probably a reason they're an asshole. Okay. And the thing is, we do things all the time that are not great. And I think we can admit that. At least I can admit that. I'm an asshole at times. But the thing is, I have reasons why I was an asshole. And so I give myself more leeway. But with other people, you don't give them the same courtesy. And what it does is it strips other people's humanity. So, and it makes you more emotional because you're trying to fix people. So if you actually see them as reasons, I'm not saying, hey, don't try to persuade them, but you can actually see them from an empathetic lens. And then lastly is you're able to hold a frame with any prospect. So understand when two people go into the conversation, what the frame of the conversation is going to be, like how the conversation is going to go, is going to be dictated by one person. So both two people come with frames, but the person with the stronger frame is going to be the one who dictates how the conversation is going to go. So if you don't understand frames and you don't understand how to swallow up frames, you're going to have a harder time just getting people to actually get in line with what you need to say. So you need to have a deeper understanding of how to actually hold a frame and get people to fall in line on what they're actually doing. Okay? So let's go into the next one, which is how do you open the call? So a 5K per month closer, they don't get people to open up and be honest about why they're there. They can't get the focus of the prospect. They allow people to ramble. A 90 plus or a 50K per month closer, 90% of the time, they get a good reason why they're there in the first 2 to 3 minutes with them being open. 90% of the time of calls, they are able to stop them from rambling and get focus on the actual prospect. And they have their opening questions memorized and they have their tonality down. So you need to have a repeatable opening of your sales call, of your sales process that allows you to do a few things. Number one, you actually understand why are they here. If you're getting people that are not even telling you a good tangible reason or why they're here or they're putting the focus on you, understand there's something fundamentally wrong with how you're opening up the call. It should be, again, very open. We're able to get the focus on them as the prospect, and we get them to actually stop rambling and get them to focus. Focus is very, very key when it comes to persuasion because how people talk is how they think. So if you have somebody who's a rambler, that means their mind is scattered. So if we get to the end of the sales call and their mind is scattered, they're going to have a hard time making a decision. So generally speaking, and this is going to be a little bit different depending on what you sell, I'm going to be very open at the very beginning of my conversation. I'm like, hey, it looks like you booked in about possibly getting help with this. Like, how can I help? Okay. And then from there, once I understand like how I can help, maybe I'll cause some probing. I have to interrupt, get them on point. It's like, okay, what's coming up in your life right now that makes you feel like you would need help with that? Again, I'm getting a good problem and then I'm pushing the call forward. And I should be getting that 2-3 minutes in at the very latest. The beginning of your call should not be long. You need to get into the sales conversation because the problem is if your sales calls go super long, then you increase the likelihood that you're going to get to think about objection. Why? Because you guys have talked about so much more and they're going to run out of steam. So you've given them more to think about, and then they don't have the energy to actually fucking think about it. So it's just a recipe for disaster. And how you start the conversation, you're teaching them how to interact with you. So if you allow them to ramble, if you allow them to lie to you, they're just going to do it the entire call. Okay, so you need to be able to keep in mind, are they open with me? Do I have the actual problem? And are they being honest with me? If you can do that at the beginning of the call, then you can move on to the next thing, which is going to be presentation. Or why do I do opening call first and then presentation? First and foremost, if you can't get somebody to be open to you and get an actual problem at the beginning of the call, the rest of your sales call is just absolutely fucked. Next, your presentation, if you can't display what it is that you are selling in a good way that you're able to get them to say, I actually want this, your sales call is also fucked. It doesn't matter how good your discovery is. If they're like, well, I don't want that, it's like, what are you doing, right? So it's like you need to have it dialed in. So the difference between a 5K per month closer and a 50K per month closer, like 5K is presentation is too long or it doesn't focus on what's actually important. It's not customized to the prospect. They can't tie off value consistently. The amount of times I've seen people just go through a generic fucking slide deck. Okay, it doesn't get the point across because people don't care about your slide deck. They care about what's important to them. So your presentation, the basics is going to be pretty much the same. But what is emphasized and what you actually talk about more is going to be custom to the person you're actually talking to. So that brings us to, what does a 50K per month closer do? So they have the presentation under 10 minutes and it is memorized. They know what they're saying. 90+% of the calls, they can tie off value and you say your presentation confidently and with conviction every single time. Now, a big misconception that I hear a lot is, well, shouldn't you be neutral, right? Bullshit. Once you get into this point of the call where they told you all their problems, you're not neutral anymore. You're absolutely convicted. You know you can help them. People buy off of your conviction. The issue is you don't even know who they are at the very beginning of the call. So if you're convicted, it comes across as disingenuous. But if you actually have had a good conversation, it makes sense why you're convicted and why you think you can help them. Now, 90% of the calls, you should be able to tie off value. What do I mean by tying off value? Before you go into the price, you should be, hey, before we get into the investment, do you feel like with what we covered, this would get you from starting point to goal? Yes. Why? The reason being is if you tie off value, then if they give you an objection, it is much simpler in what they're objecting to because there are only 3 objections: time, money, and value. So if you get rid of value, they say, hey, with what I'm doing or with what you covered, it can get you from where they are to where they want to be. That means that they are bought into what you are selling. And you should be able to get it on most every single call, okay, right after presentation. And your presentation should be under 10 minutes. The reason being is if you're talking at somebody for a longer period of time, the likelihood that they're going to tune out and not really hear what you're saying increases. And the likelihood that they're going to be able to keep the emotions high that you would have from your discovery is so much lower. So I don't know about you, but I want a tight 5-10 minutes at most presentation, tie off value, and then handle any concerns if there are any. But if you've done the discovery perfectly, there shouldn't be any concerns. Okay, cool. So after you really master presentation, then you want to make sure you master the future pace. So why do we want to match your future pace next? So once you understand, hey, why they're here, get the presentation, they actually want what you have. If they have good goals, this will get a good chunk of people. So what is the difference between a 5K per month closer and a 50K per month closer is, well, a 5K per month closer, they're very vague with their goals in their future. People shut down or they challenge your questions or you don't get emotion out of them consistently. So a 50K per month closer, they have very open tone. They get people to open up. 90% of the sales calls, they get specific, tangible, and emotional outcomes, okay? And 90% of the calls, they get a moment in time for the prospect. So let's talk about it. So in order to get really good goals, and why getting goals are really important is because if somebody wants something, they want an outcome, if you understand their why behind it and you get them to actually talk about their why, you get them to talk about their specifics, it will make it much more likely that they are going to want to take a step in that direction. Okay? So it's going to be so much more likely. So we need to get them to be actually open for them to tell you what their goals are. And the issue is with most closers that I see that are not at the level that they need to be is they ask future pace questions in a way that doesn't allow the prospect to open up. Most people do not like talking about their goals or dreams or aspirations because most people, if they go out into the world and they talk about it, they get shamed about it. So you need to have a very open tone and get people to actually open up to you. You need to be the safe space, right? Quote unquote, the safe space that actually allows this person to dream. And it's not that they're just allowed to dream in vagueness. It needs to be specific. If it's not specific, it's not real. And if it's not real, the likelihood that they're going to do anything about it is next to fucking nothing. Okay. So you need specific, tangible, and emotional outcomes. If somebody says, well, I need financial freedom, like, oh, like what does financial freedom actually look like for you? What do you mean by financial freedom? How much would you be needed to make specifically? Oh, and how would your life actually be different than like having financial freedom versus now? What are the things you can do that maybe you can't do now? You need specifics. And then once you get specific tangibles, right? Things they can touch, they can see, they can taste, then you need to get emotions. So once you get like, hey, I can do this or I can have this, and that's important because of this, well, what does that actually do for you personally, emotionally? Get emotional outcomes. And then when you're talking about getting the moment in time, understand people do things for moments. Okay. It's the moments in time that make people either do things or not want to do things. For example, if you touched your hand on a stove, it was that moment of intense pain that caused you not to want to fucking touch that stove anymore. Okay. On the other end, if you're talking about, going on vacation or different things along those lines, there are going to be moments that really encapsulates the feeling that you really want to feel. Like if you're going to Hawaii or with your, wife, your kid, it's the moment like you're sitting on the hammock and you have no cares in the world. That's what you're doing it for. So if you're able to encapsulate the actual moment in time for them that makes it all worth it, that's what's really going to drive them. They're able to actually visualize, see that moment, and that's going to make them want to run closer towards it. Okay. So if you're able to actually paint the moment in time for them, that's when they're actually going to be able to see what their future pace, what their goals actually are. It makes it much more tangible and it makes people much more urgent to actually try to get it. So the way you got to think about it is if you want a Lamborghini, for example, if you've never had a Lamborghini, you don't think about Lamborghinis that much. You probably don't have a ton of urgency. Like you still want it, but you probably don't have a ton of urgency. But if I allowed you to actually drive in a Lamborghini for like 30 fucking minutes, like you actually saw what it was, you saw how fucking cool it was. And then I'm like, well, actually, never mind. You're going to have so much more motivation to actually get after it because you know what it actually looks like. You know what it feels like, right? You felt the fucking engine. You visualized it. But the thing is, your mind doesn't know the difference between an imagined memory and a real memory. So what you're doing is you're getting people to imagine what it is like in their future so they run so much quicker towards it. Okay? So next, after future pace, what you need to get dialed in is going to be consequence. So 5K per month closers. I see this so often. They don't even fucking ask consequence questions. Or like when they do ask, like people don't answer. So at the very beginning, when you are really trying to hammer hard and get into more emotion, different things along those lines, the hardest question for most people to start asking is going to be consequence. But once you actually dial it in, it is my absolute favorite question to ask because I know that's where the fucking sale is made. That's where the urgency is created. So if you get really good at just opening the call, presentation, future pace, and consequence, you will close a very high level of people, right? So the thing is, the more you go down this list, the more and more people you can close. And when you implement it like this, it will just raise the amount and the close rate that you have. Okay. So once we get into consequence, what does a 50K per month closer do? They have their challenging tone that cuts people to their fucking core. They're able to get good emotional consequences. And they've also memorized 5 different ways to actually ask again and double down. The reason is why you want to have multiple ways to ask the consequence question is because it is a tough question to answer. And a lot of times what people do is they'll create social gymnastics, right? Your prospects will have social gymnastics on, oh, how that's not going to happen, or well, things will just stay the same. They give you surface level answers because they don't want to go there. So you need to be able to actually ask it again, double down, and get good emotional consequences because 90% of the time you should get good emotional consequences. Now, what is a good emotional consequence? It's not the actual word. You're not searching for a specific word. You're searching for an emotion. You're searching for the fact that they've actually contemplated what it is that you're selling and they've actually contemplated on some level what it actually looks like. And if you're able to get emotion out of them, that's a good fucking consequence. For example, If I ask somebody a consequence question and they say, "Oh no, like my life is going to be over. It'll be the worst thing that ever happened to me," but they say it with no emotion, that's not a good answer. Versus, or I can remember a consequence in specific. It was this guy, and we dove really deep into discovery, and then I asked him a really pointed consequence question, and he just was silent. You can tell he was holding back tears, and he barely squeaked out a, "It's not going to be good," right? That is a good consequence. It's not the words, it's the emotion. And his like holding back tears, "It's not going to be good," is a fucking elite answer. Okay. So I knew I got enough. And if I kept hammering him, like, he could run into some issues. Okay. So after we get consequence down, what do we need to do next? We need to make sure we get down basic objections. So what does a 5K per month closer do when it comes to objections? They don't try to overcome objections. They get hit with an objection. They're like, "All right, let me just set a follow-up." Or they're just winging it. They run out of shit to say. So a 50K per month closer, they have absolute memorized frontwards to backwards the top 3 objections that you're getting. Because the thing is, you should be, number one, tracking what objections you get. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, things outside your sales call. But number two, you know what they're going to say. You absolutely know what objection they're going to give, at least a high likelihood, because most people give you the same fucking objections. So you not knowing what to say is absolutely, there is no excuse for that. You just are not taking your job seriously if you don't know what to fucking say when you get an objection. So you should have at least your top 3 objections memorized front to back. And you're able to overcome at least 60% of your top 3 objections when they come up. The only exception is going to be logistical money, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And you at least attempt every objection thrown your way on every call. You never give up on people. This is a mentality. You at least go for it. I get asked this way too much when somebody says like, "Oh, well, I got hit with this objection. How do I handle it?" I'm like, "Well, how did you try to handle it?" "Well, I didn't." Well, the first advice I'm going to give you is at least fucking try. If you don't try, it's hard to give feedback on how you're going about it. Okay. And if you try, we can critique like, okay, how can we dial it in? What's the best way to go about it? Because if you don't try, like there's not really much there. So at least build the mentality in your head to go after it no matter what. Because there is always going to be a moment you get an objection and you have 2 choices. You cave like a baby back bitch, or you go for it. You should always go for it. You should eliminate number 1 in your mind. And it doesn't mean like number 1's never going to win, but when it does win, and it shouldn't ever like frequently, but if it does win, we need to get back on the horse and just make sure we get after it the next time. Okay? So next, that's when we actually want to dial in problem into the discovery. But Christian, you're telling me that we wait until we dial in all this stuff to really dive into problem when problem's like the third thing you dive into on your discovery? Why would you do that? Well, the reason is because problem is one of those things that's going to be harder to dial in, especially when you're talking about getting really good problems, really good emotional, tangible things. So you can get pretty efficient at just, why are they here? Okay. What do they want? Their future pace, consequence, good presentation, and objection handling. Like you can be closing 30, 40, I've seen sometimes even 50%, like not even getting good problems. Now, if you want to close 60, 70, 80, 90%, like you need to get good problems. But again, like we're going in order that's only going to increase the amount of sales you're going to make. Because what happens and what can happen is if you try to really like dial in problem too early when you don't have other things dialed in, oftentimes like you fucking shoot yourself in the foot because you don't have the presence of mind of what landmines not to step on. And then you piss people off early in the conversation and it just kind of goes sideways. So that's why I typically recommend like you do want to dial in problem 100%, but you dial in problem after you dial in some other things. And then once you have it dialed in, okay, then we go on to the next one. But what is a 5K per month closer? Okay, they can't get people to admit that they have problems or how bad they are. And people abdicate responsibility. If you've ever heard, "Oh, like, it's not my fault. It's the economy. I just want to make more money. I don't have any problems," like this type of shit. It's just because we're not asking problem questions. We're not getting to people's problem in a way that gets them to admit, number 1, they are the actual problem. They are the problem. And number 2, they actually have a fucking problem, right? Like, not only are they the problem, there is a problem to be there, and we're actually getting good emotional outcomes. So, what is a 50K per month closer? You have your problem questions memorized, and you have memorized how to probe with the correct tone. You actually know where you're going. 90% of your calls, you get a good personal impact question. You get real emotion. You get people to open up, and you get people to admit it is their fault. Okay. If you can't get people to admit it is their fault, then by golly, there's nothing that you can do to get them to buy because it's not their fucking fault, right? If it's not their fault, then nothing you can do can help them because it's not their fault. So you need to get people to admit that it is their fault. And if you want examples of this, I just posted a breakdown of a call where somebody abdicated responsibility like 6 different fucking times. And it wasn't until I got him to admit it was his fault that I moved on. So once you're able to do that, that's when you really start to unlock problem. You need people to admit it is their actual fault that their problem is there and that there is real emotion behind it. Because something you can also run into is people say, oh, well, it's not that bad. If they're telling you it's not that bad, they're also telling themselves it's not that bad. And if they're telling themselves it's not that bad, where is the urgency to buy? They don't have it. So you need to get through that shit, get them to admit it actually is that bad and it is their fault. If you're able to do that, you have dialed in problem. Okay. Next is you need to dive into buying decisions and pre-handling objections. 5K per month closers don't pre-handle fucking shit. 50K per month closers have the pre-handling process memorized with good tone. 90% of the calls, they get an internal belief. 80% of the calls, they tie off the internal belief with pain and a commitment to change. So what do I mean by that? So when we're talking about pre-handling objections or just overcoming objections, understand what an objection really is. It is a belief. It is a belief of the world that is holding them back. And if you are able to actually get to the belief, we can tie it to pain and get them to commit to this belief is no longer worth it. Now, does that mean every single time it will not come up at the end of the sales call? No, but majority of the time it won't. And if it does, it's so much easier to overcome. So the issue is what most people is either one, they don't pre-handle at all, or number two, when they try to pre-handle or get to like what's been holding them back, they get external things. They don't get an internal belief. The fact that I don't have money is not an internal belief. The fact that I'm not willing to get resourceful to get the outcomes I want is an internal belief. There is a difference. The fact that I don't have time is external to me, my internal beliefs. The fact that I'm not willing to make time, that is an internal belief. The fact that, well, I just didn't know what this was, that is an external thing. I didn't know what this was. It's outside of me. The internal belief is I haven't put in the effort. I haven't found it in myself to actually try to find solutions. That is on me. So we need to turn these beliefs internal, number one. Number two, we need to get them to admit that it's not helping them. We tie it to pain, and depending on what you're selling, there's different ways to tie it to pain, and then get them to commit that this belief is no longer helping them. If we could do that, okay, we're pre-handling objections with ease. Right? Okay. Then next, we dive into identity. Now, if you know anything about me or if you've seen previous trainings, I talk about identity selling so much because I feel like it is an absolute fucking cheat code on getting, I feel like it's an absolute fucking cheat code on closing as many people as possible. Like you're talking to somebody at the most fundamental level, how they view themselves. It is such a better conversation to have. But the issue is if you just try to dive into identity without having everything else like really dialed in, again, typically you're not going to have the authority. You don't have the pain. You don't have all the things you really need to dive into people's identity. So it might not work the way that you want. So if you've watched my free shit and you're like, oh, that sounds cool, let me try it on calls, and it's not working consistently, because it can work sometimes, but if it's not working consistently, then this is why. We don't have other things dived in. So do 5% closers sell to identity? No, they don't. Like, what is that? Okay. 50K per month closers, they have actually memorized the identity framing. They use it on 90+% of calls, and they get a good identity consequence on 90+% of calls. What happens if you say this person for the rest of your life? Crunk, that should fucking kill them. And if you get that on your calls, that is going to be the ultimate urgency that you're going to need to get a majority of people across the line. Okay. Next, Advanced sales techniques. So once we got really all the process down, from opening all the way down to objection handling, identity, all the things, then we can start to do some advanced stuff. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing advanced stuff until we have everything else really dialed in. Okay. So do 5K per month closers do advanced sales techniques? They might fucking try, but they don't know what they're doing. Who is that, right? 50K per month closer. Okay. They craft a personal story and they memorize it. They learn advanced metaphors and reframes. They dial in their tonality. I would say storytelling in sales is an absolute fucking cheat code. So, and it's only something I would recommend once you have everything else dialed in. I did a video on storytelling in sales, but things like that, advanced metaphors, reframes, really taking your discovery just up a notch. And then lastly is advanced objection handling as well. Again, 5K per month closers, they don't really understand like advanced objection handling. Most of them don't even understand the basics, but a 50K per month closer, like they've learned identity objection handling, they have memorized solid fear reframes, and they're able to break patterns and raise intensity. This one is the fucking key one. So most people think like, hey, just to get better at objection handling, I just got to memorize like 100 different fucking reframes. And so that way I have something to say no matter what they say. But that's not really it. Like, I really only have like 3 to 5 really good reframes just like drilled in, and I customize it to the person I'm talking to, number one. But number two, I'm able to break patterns and raise intensity so they're able to actually take in what I am saying. It's not that you just need more and more reframes, is you just need people to actually listen to you, consider what you're saying, and buy into the reframes that you are using. If you're able to do that, you don't need a ton. You have very rarely will I have to use 3 reframes. Very, very rarely when I'm in like fear or anything like that, when I'm deep in objection handling, like somebody who has a lot of shit, very rarely will I ever get to that point. Very rarely does it get past 1, right? Normally 1, done and dusted, I'm good. But you should have more, and it raises the intensity, and I'm able to break patterns, which is going to get somebody to focus and be able to get somebody to move. Because if you've ever gotten somebody that says, I know, but, or I get where you're saying, but, and they just keep going in a circle, that's because they're in autopilot mode. And this is what will happen the further you go on objection handling if you're not able to get their focus. So you need to be able to break patterns and raise intensity. Okay. So next, we're talking about outside of the call that still has to do with sales. So very first thing we really need to dial in is our mentality. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Mentality. Okay, first thing we need to dial in is mentality, right? You don't need to spell correctly in order to do this. So, what is our mentality? What should we be doing outside of our sales calls that is still sales related? So, the thing you have to understand is 5K per month closers, when they get a no-show, something happens, like they do errands, they watch YouTube, they do role plays. A 50K per month closer is always thinking like, who has my money? They have non-scheduled, scheduled activities, and they have the most activity on the team. So yes, on some level, you want to be skilled enough to where it's like sales is not a numbers game for you, right? To where it's just like, you just need to talk to so many people to get sales. But on some level, sales is a numbers game. And I know the popular example that I know like Jeremy Miner uses is like Stephen Curry, right? It's a skills-based game. But Stephen Curry does have very good skills when it comes to shooting threes, okay? Very good skill. But he also shoots a fuck ton. If he only shot 3 threes a game, he wouldn't be able to average 30 plus points. You need to have the skill of being able to close as many people as humanly possible, but you also need to talk to as many people as humanly possible so you can make as much money as humanly possible. So you need to have the mentality of who has my money. If you are not talking to somebody as a closer, you are not making fucking money, okay? And one of the big things that I see is like people will like role play, right? They'll spend their time role playing versus just calling up old leads and trying to sell them. Role play with old leads, okay? So always be thinking, who has my money? And actually have non-scheduled, scheduled activities and do the most activity on the team. You should be the most skilled person on your team and do the most activity on your team. If you do both, that's how you can hit 50K plus per month, okay? So after we have the right mentality, what do we need to be doing in order? First and foremost, we need to track their data. So 5K per month closers, they have very little tracking. And because they don't track their numbers, they make emotional decisions. Do not make emotional decisions. You'll make bad decisions. A 50K per month closer, they understand their numbers for show rate, one call close rate, follow-up rate, objections, slot utilization rate, and they make decisions based off of data. Just understand, human emotion is subjective. Your numbers, your data, if you're tracking them correctly, is not subjective. You need to make decisions on what you should do based off of your data. What is not working? What is your lowest hanging fruit? So you need to understand like your show rate. How many people who are booked actually show up? Your one call close rate. How many people close on the first call? What is your follow-up rate? How many people close on follow-up? What actual objections do you get? Like, what are your top 3 objections? If you do not know what your top 3 objections are, you're not actually tracking them, you're going to have a hard time really dialing in what objections you need to dial in. And the problem is with just thinking you know what your top 3 objections is because you might have an objection that really pisses you off. Like, for example, like let's just say you really hate when you lose a sale to partner objections. But you're losing so much more sales to money fear, but it doesn't bother you as much. You might focus more of your attention on partner objections. Again, you're wasting your time. And then slot utilization rate. So this is how many sales slots do you actually have open and how many get used? This is different from actual show rate because if you're double booking, okay, slot utilization rate is going to account for how many actual slots did you get filled. Okay, and then we make decisions based off of data. So you need to be able to track your data. Next, we need to be able to optimize our calendar. So 5K per month closers, they allow the day to happen to them. And because of that, they're going to miss out on prime selling time. A 50K per month closer has a structured calendar to where they can take as many sales calls as humanly possible. And they schedule out their entire day from recovery to off time. They do not let the day happen to them. They happen to the day. They have scheduled out how many sales calls they can take. They have scheduled, non-scheduled, scheduled activity. They have scheduled their recovery, their off time. Their entire calendar is optimized to make as much money as possible. Okay. If you allow the day to happen to you, you're not going to have a fun time. You have to structure out your day so you happen to the day. You fucking get after it. Next, after you have your tracking data, you're optimizing your calendar, the easiest thing that you can start doing right away to start making more money outside of actual sales calls, but still in your sales related, is going to be referrals. And I am shocked on how many people just do not ask for referrals. They don't ask. And they just hope and they pray that some referrals come your way. And sometimes they will, but most of the time they won't. A 50K per month closer asks for a referral after every sale. And they have a process to, even after they ask for it on the sale, to get them consistently. We need to have a process to get referrals. Referrals are free money. They close at a higher clip and they're more likely to give you referrals as well. So you're not asking for referrals. You just hate fucking money. Okay. Just simple as that. Next is going to be your pre-call process. So why is your pre-call process important? Because the 5K per month closer, they have a generic pre-call process, lower show rate, people are showing up less bought in. A 50K per month closer has a customized pre-call process to indoctrinate them, right? We're in the process, like we're in the game of persuasion. So I want to persuade people before they show up. I am sending them things to persuade them. They're more indoctrinated to what they have to say. So they're more likely to open up to me. Why would I make things harder for myself? Show rate is above 70%. And then people are more bought in when they do show up. So the thing is, if your pre-call process is generic, it's automated, people are very keen to that. They know that. So they're less likely to actually go through the shit that you're sending over. On the other end, if you actually customize your process, if you customize it to them, to their problems, either through text, through a call, whatever it is, it depends on exactly what you're selling, what the process looks like, of what makes the most sense. If you customize it and you send them custom things that they can go over, that is actually important to them, they will, believe it or not, actually go through it. And if they actually go through it, more likely to show and they're more likely to buy, even if you're shit at sales. Okay? So get more people bought in. So text blast and email blast. This is the next easiest thing to do. 5K per month closers, don't do it. 50K per month closers, they have planned text and email blasts each week, and they make consistent sales from this activity. So there are text and email blasts. If you have a CRM, there is just money laying around. So we can make dials, yes, but also we can send text and email blasts that help us just pick up money that's laying on the floor. A simple text blast that you can send is a no sale text blast. Basically saying like, hey, like name, this is just name from company. it looks like a little while back, we weren't able to get you into the program, but we just actually added on a way to split up the payment to where you can get ABC outcome without the upfront investment. Would you like to hear more about that? Send. And you send it to like 100 people. And then the people who text you back, right? We call them right away and then we see if we can't get a close. Really easy one to do. You can also do it for referrals. You can do it for upsells. We should have at least 2 times per month, ideally every single week, a text blast. And again, this is what we're thinking. We have to have the mentality. Who has my money? So at the beginning of every single week, we need a plan. Who has my money? Have I been hitting up my upsells lately? Have I been hitting up my referrals lately? My no sales? And then we go to our text blast. And then we craft the text blast to hit that person, to hit those people, to make sure we're making more and more money. Okay? So the next thing after text blast is having an upsell process. So a 5K per month closer, they wait for people to ask for an upsell. Okay? They let shit happen to them. A 5K per month or 50K per month closer, they seed the upsell on every close. They have a process to upsells a large percentage of prospects, and around 30% of sales are actually coming from upsells alone. Now, if the offer you are on does not have an upsell, understand that's going to limit how high you can go because it limits the LTV of the prospect. For example, if you only have a 5K per month or 5K program, then you can only make $500 per prospect at the very most. Versus if you have a 5K product and a 10K product and like a 50K product, like the amount that you can make per each sale is so much higher. You go from making 500 per sale to 1,500 or 5,000. The LTV is super important. So this is also you keep in mind on what offer is going to be optimal if you are looking to be a 50K per month closer. They need to be able to have an ecosystem that helps you get to that. Okay, which means there needs to be things to upsell. So in every single sale, they should seed the upsell. So you need to tell people that there is more shit to buy. Now, after you sell somebody, let's say on a 5K program, and then there's a 10 or 15K upsell, you don't try to sell them right there to the 15K. What you're going to do is like, okay, welcome on board. You go through everything and it's like, okay, cool, man. So you're set up with everything. And just so you know, what a lot of people will ask me is like, hey, what's the next step after this? What most people do is they do our ABC program that does 1, 2, and 3. Now, that's a little bit too advanced for where you're at right now. You need to get to this goal first. But do you think it would help if I actually sent over like a training from that advanced program as well? And they're going to say yes, obviously. Okay. And then you send it over to them. So you're already seeding in their mind that there is a next step. Most people just need to know that there's something else to buy. And then from there, you should be booking in a check-in call. Now, check-in calls are really great because they help you ask for more referrals and they also help you upsell people. So something I would always do is have a 21-day check-in. So I sell somebody, I ask for a referral, I see the upsell, and then I'm setting a 21-day check-in. Okay, a 15-minute call, typically on a Friday afternoon, where there's not a lot of sales calls anyways, and I'm seeing where they're at in the program. I'm asking for more referrals, and again, I'm either getting the upsell right then, or I'm seeding the upsell for again another month or 2 months, just depending on how long the program is. There is an actual process to this. I am systematic. Like, yes, I want to be closing and be systematic on my actual sales call. My discovery needs to be repeatable, but the systems outside of that to maximize my sales, that needs to be repeatable as well. So I get as many people as humanly possible upsold and I get more lifetime value. So my 30% of my sales, my commissions should just be coming from upsells alone. Okay. Now that can vary depending on what offer you're on, but that's going to be a good benchmark. So after you get the upsell process dialed in, then we have our no-show process. So what happens when we get a no-show? A 5K per month closer just fuck off and watches YouTube. A 50K per month closer, they have a list of highest intent to lowest intent of who they can talk to. And as soon as they get a no-show, they get after a list. Now, what do I mean from highest intent to lowest intent? So you do not want to be wasting your time talking to low intent leads unless those are the only people to talk to. So you want to go from highest intent, the most likely to buy. Now, who is the most likely to buy? Okay, upsells, right? People who already bought something. Now, they could, like low ticket, yes, they bought something, but ideally you want to work your way from people who bought the most, highest ticket and work your way down. Then after you go over who has bought something, then you can go to no sales. Now, no sales are going to be higher intent than no shows because they actually showed up to a fucking sales call. Okay. And then no shows are going to be next just because, again, they did book in, but they didn't show. And then lastly is going to be like opt-ins, which means they didn't even book a sales call. So you want to work your way from highest intent down to lowest intent. Most of the time, you're never even going to have enough time to get to opt-ins. But if you do have time, don't pussyfoot around. There is going to be gold in opt-ins, but you are searching more for gold, okay? You just need to make sure you have the activity to back up the amount of money you're looking to be making. So you can't be wanting to make 50K per month, but do 5K per month activity. Next, and I would say last, is have a relationship with the setters. So a 5K per month closer doesn't have a relationship with the setters. They think like, oh, well, like their manager, or whoever it is, whoever's in like keeps the track of the setters, they do that shit. Okay. But setters are directly impacting the amount of money you can make. So if a setter is not doing a good job, they are directly limiting the amount of money you can fucking make. So a 50K per month closer helps dial in their process and trains them better. And they actually help them make more money. And what can happen when you help them make more money? You can ask for special favors. For example, I would give extra comms for hot leads and to get prioritized. So something that I did on every single offer I was on is I would create the relationship with the setters. I'm like, hey man, we're going to make some more fucking money. I would help give them training, right? Because they're directly impacting the amount of money I can make. And then I told them, hey, if you send me hot leads and they close, I will give you more comms, right? So right now, let's say they're getting 2%. I'll give them an extra 2%. So they're making $100. Now they're making $200. So they're much more likely to send you leads. And on all the offers I did this on, only one actual sales manager ever found out. And that was Matt Ryder. And he gave me kudos. He goes, hey, kudos for you. I don't know exactly what you're doing to get all these leads, but it stops right now. Right? And then as soon as he left, I started doing it again. But on all the different offers I was on, I would always do this. So I'd get hotter leads and more of them. And only one person who really knows sales was ever able to actually find out that that was what I was doing. Okay. Because if you're not cheating, you're not fucking trying. Okay. So give them extra comms, get more sales. You'll make more money overall because of it. Okay. And then last, what do we dial in? Lifestyle. Okay. So lifestyle, how do we go ahead and dial this in? So the first thing when it comes to our lifestyle is our goals. So a 5K per month closer, they have vague goals, a vague plan, and how to get there. Okay, a 50K per month closer, they have a specific goal and plan. They're honest with themselves about it. They have the goal broken down into daily KPIs to achieve their outcome, and they have a weekly reflection process to update their plan. So success is a small target. It's going to be hard to hit it if you don't know what it is, but it needs to be specific and broken down into daily KPIs so you know if you're moving towards your goals or you're moving away from your goals. What happens oftentimes is people make like yearly goals, which again, it gives you the illusion that you have time. I'm much more a fan of like 12-week or 90-day goals. So that way you don't give yourself the time that you need, and the goal and the process and the action plan, it updates much more frequently. But the biggest thing when it comes to your goals is you need to be honest with yourself about your goals and the fact that you need to make more money. What a lot of people will do is they will try to tell themselves or like fool themselves. Like, I don't need to make any more money. I'm happy where I'm at. But if you're really honest with yourself, money is going to dictate most of the decisions you make in your life, like where you live, the people you're around, what you're able to do. Money directly impacts that. If you're not honest with yourself about it, then you're going to strip yourself of the actual motivation to get after it. So you need to be honest with yourself. Like, for example, if somebody is like fat and like you hear people say this, like, oh, I don't like model girls. I like thicker girls, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, if you even tried to talk to one, like you would catch a charge. So it's easier for them to convince themselves that they don't want like model girls because they can never get one. As well, people do that with money. Like, for example, like for me, like right now, I'm in a private island resort in Vietnam. But if I had the money, there is a $2.4 million like penthouse in downtown Nha Trang, right by the beach, that I would much rather live in. Okay. It's much more open. It looks nicer. It's right by the beach. It also has the security, the gym I like here, the sauna, everything along those lines. So it's not like I'm in a bad situation, but I want something like better. And I'm not lying to myself saying I don't want that. And the only reason like I don't have that is because I don't have the millions of dollars to just put into that property right now. And so it just comes down to, I'm honest with myself, like I need to make more fucking money, right? So it's like, I'm not going to compromise. I want that. So I'm going to do the actions required in order to get that. So now I have a goal, but I can only get that goal if I'm honest with myself. So be honest with yourself that you want to make more money. If you're honest with yourself, then you can actually achieve it. But if you tell yourself you don't need it, then okay, you're going to have a hard fucking time, right? Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to others. So next thing, once you have your goals, the next thing you need to dial in is going to be your sleeping. So a 5K per month closer is inconsistent sleep, which causes inconsistent energy, which causes a frowny face. Oh no. Okay. A 50K per month closer, they get to bed and they wake up at the same time every single fucking day. They get sunlight first thing in the morning to regulate their circadian rhythm. And at night, they have no light, no sounds, and no screens in the bedroom. So they optimize their sleep. You cannot outwork terrible sleep. You need energy to show up with the right state of mind, to actually get after it, to focus, to actually have the mental capacity to sell. You are a mental athlete. You only get paid if you close people. So if you are not prioritizing your sleep, if you don't have good sleep, it will limit how far you can go. Okay. Next, once you have your sleep dialed in, we have our focus and our state management. So a 5K per month closer, they're a slave to their emotions. They get distracted easily and they got fucking TikTok brain. A 50K per month closer is focused 8 to 12 hours a day. They show up on every single call with the right state and they're walking in the identity they need to be every single day. So the biggest tool that you have, not only in sales, but just in life, is your focus. And there are billion-dollar companies that are, well, trillion-dollar companies that are fighting for your focus. Social media, YouTube, what you're watching right now, this is trying to get your focus. So you should not, like, and again, I'm going to say this as somebody, like, I want you to be watching me. So eventually, like, I could train you all that stuff. Like, you can trust me. But ideally, you're not watching YouTube. You're not doing these things. You have 8 to 12 hours of actual focus, of you doing work that you know you need to do. Okay. And then you're recovering outside of that. So again, you're not going into TikTok brain. You're not trying to just distract yourself. You have focus. You have intent. If you're able to dial in your focus, there's really nothing that's going to hold you back. So focus is absolute key. But why I have it number 3 is because it's hard to focus if you can't sleep. And it's hard to even know what you want to focus on if you don't have your goals. So that's why focus and state management is 3. Next is going to be biology. So a 5K per month closer, they never get outside. Their diet is all over the place, right? Again, misspoiled that. So their diet is all over the place. Okay. And they just feel blah daily. Okay. No bueno. A 50K per month closer, they eat single ingredient foods 80% of the time. They have their diet dialed in. They hydrate with good, clean mineral spring water, right? Okay. Got the sparkling mineral water here from friends because I'm bougie as fuck. Okay, they move daily and they optimize sunlight to maximize performance, and they have a recovery protocol to perform at peak levels. Now, the maximizing performance is the key wording on this. So this does not mean you kill yourself every single day at the gym. This does not mean you're leaning down to get to 5% body fat. Like, I've been 5% body fat before. Like, I've done bodybuilding shows and I did that with performance enhancing, substances. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It can absolutely ruin your life and almost killed me. That aside, even with that, I didn't have energy, I didn't have focus, and I felt like shit the entire time when I got into low percentage body fat. And if you are a natural, which you should be, and you start to get to low percentage body fat, your hormones are absolute garbage, you're not able to sleep well, and your focus is going to be garbage. The problem is most of these people who talk about movement and like working out and different things along those lines, they're on either TRT or performance enhancing drugs, especially as a male, and testosterone directly impacts a lot of what we're talking about here. So, as much as I love Alex Ramosi, he is on TRT. He has an unfair advantage. And me personally, I just had a child. I want to have more children. I'm not going to sacrifice me having children just so I can have a little bit of an advantage. No, I'm just going to optimize what I'm doing to make sure I have that same advantage. I can't go as hard in the gym. I can't like work out 6 days a week, like hard intensity. I need to maximize my sleep to make sure I'm maximizing my output when it comes to actual work. Because I understand there are seasons of life. Now, you're actually looking to get on a bodybuilding stage, which I did. I understood when I was doing that, I was not going to maximize the amount of money I was making, right? You just don't have the focus to. So if right now you're looking to maximize the money you're making, it's really about like at least staying where you need to be, like, staying consistent in these other areas where they don't decrease, they can stay the same. It's much easier to stay the same than it is to increase. Okay. So it's just about staying the same and making sure that you are able to perform at a peak level. Next, we have time management. So 5K per month closer, they're stuck doing a lot of low value tasks. They never feel like they have enough time. Okay. They're busy, but they're never getting shit done. A 50K per month closer, they outsource anything that is lower than their hourly rate. They prioritize extra time on money-making activities to maximize commissions, and they spend extra time recovering so they can perform better. So the thing is, if you're a 50K per month closer or you're looking to make as much money as possible, you should not be spending your time doing low-value tasks. Christian, what's an example of a low-value task? Like fucking cleaning your place. I hire a housekeeper to come in and clean at least once, most of the time twice per week, okay? You shouldn't be cooking your own food. Now, I have a traditional Asian wife, right? My wife is originally from Vietnam. We met in the US. She's a US citizen, but she loves to cook for me. Like, I don't cook my own food. And if she didn't like to cook or, I chose a wife that didn't like to cook, like I would just buy meals or something along those lines. I wouldn't be spending my time cooking because, again, it's just wasted time. It's wasted energy. I could be spending that time doing money-making activities like making YouTube videos. But for you as a salesperson, you can be doing that by taking more calls. So understand, if you're not talking to people, you are not making money. So you want to make sure you're prioritizing everything you can to just make sure you're able to talk to as many people as possible. And you're outsourcing low skilled activities like cooking, cleaning, laundry, shit like that. Just get it out. And even in you're like, Christian, well, I don't want to work more. I only want to work 45, 50 hours a week. And I do that right now. And I'm able to do all these low skilled activities. Well, if you still outsource them, and then instead of spending all that time cooking, cleaning, laundry, then you're able to spend the time you would have doing those things recovering. And if you're able to recover better, you're able to perform better. And most people actually don't understand that it is so much cheaper than what you would actually think to actually outsource these things, okay, than it is to just do it. It is so like when I was in Miami, this is probably like the most expensive it was going to be, but like a housekeeper, it was like $200 a week, right? Like $800 a month. And for me, it was absolutely worth it because my time is so much more valuable than what I was paying them. So I could spend my time doing more important things. And I had a bigger place. If you don't have a bigger place, or if you're in a place that's not as expensive, it's not even going to cost $200 a week. Okay. Next, after we outsource, we get our time back. We have our environment. So a 5K per month closer, they're selling out of their mom's basement and it looks like it. Okay. A 50K per month closer, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, by the way, has a professional setup and that helps them gain authority. Okay. So it's like for me, now again, I'm ordering stuff. It's harder to get shit here in Vietnam, not gonna lie. I tried to have like this view in the background because there's a really nice view over here, but I don't have bright enough lights that really illuminated my face and allowed you to see it. Because there's like big mountains. I don't know, it looks cool. But also it inspires me that I can look out and I see this stuff right now. But like behind me, I have like a bookshelf, whiteboard, different things like that. Like I'm obviously in my own office. I'm not selling in my mom's basement. I actually ordered some signs, like Tony, the guy that's like, oh, my name's Tony. Check out these signs. I actually ordered it. Like he's in China and they're coming here. So I'm gonna spruce up this environment. But like when I was in Miami, I had a much sprucier environment. And it's just because like it gives you authority, number one, but number two, your workspace, it inspires you, it helps push you, it's an asset. So it can either work for you or it can work against you, okay? We don't want it to be a net neutral. Oftentimes, it's working against you. Like if your workspace doesn't inspire you, it doesn't help you work, then it is working against you. So for me, my desk is clean. I just have water, my mouse. I have like professional setup, good microphone. I have camera, lights. I have this other camera here, side angle. I'm not connected to it right now. Yeah, so it's like it's a professional setup that like allows me to focus and it helps push me. And then also, your location is optimized for the right weather and city that you actually enjoy. For me personally, I fucking hate the cold. Okay. I hate the cold. So I'm not going to live anywhere that is cold. I just won't. I refuse. So as soon as I started, in sales, I started making money. I, as a 21-year-old, got all my stuff and I moved from Kansas, where I was, and I moved to Miami Beach. And just that move alone, because like I'm in an environment I much more enjoy. And then I was also not surrounded by people who would take my attention. This allowed me to push so much harder and get so much further than I ever would have. Now, I will say, in my younger days, Miami Beach did not help in terms of always with the focus because of my vice with women. So if you have that vice, I want to recommend Miami Beach. But for example, here in Vietnam, right now it is sunny. It is humid out. I like it humid. I like being near the beach. I like that stuff. So every time I look out, I can go outside. I can walk. I can get sunlight. So this is super, super key. So if you're in an environment, you're in a location, you cannot escape the weather. So it might be better for you to move to a place to where you have better weather. And I've had a couple of my mastermind members, just the fact that them moving locations, one moved to Austin, the other moved to Tampa, just that fact alone, their income fucking skyrocketed because they also were able to step into being a different person because their old identity was in the old place that they were. Okay. So having their environment dialed in. Next, we have meditation and visualization. So a 5K per month closer, they don't do this shit. They think it's woo-woo. A 50K per month closer, they understand that meditation, visualization helps mindfulness, and they practice the feelings of the emotions that they need. So understand that emotions are chemicals in your body, and your body can get addicted to certain type of emotions, just depending on how you've lived your life, how you grew up. So the issue is that, especially if you didn't have the best upbringing, or you're not in the position that you want to be right now, oftentimes you haven't been feeling the emotions you truly want to feel, but your body gets addicted to them. So they want to feel those emotions because they don't want change. They just want to feel the same. It doesn't want you to die. And it knows when you feel these emotions, you don't die. So if you feel not enough, that is an emotion that your body can get addicted to. It is a chemical in your brain. Okay. So how do you actually get unaddicted and get addicted to other emotions? What most people do is they'll wait for the external world to tell me I need to feel these certain things, rather than understanding you have all the things inside of you right now to feel the best you've ever felt. You just haven't given yourself permission. You're waiting for external permission, but with mindfulness and visualization, you can give yourself internal permission. And that way you can practice these emotions. And they rewrite every single call in their head that didn't close, and they rewrite it, them actually closing, them giving them their card information, them doing all the things that they know they should do, right? So in their heads, they close 100%. And this allows you to show up every call calm and confident. If you close 100% in your head, your mind doesn't know the difference between an imagined memory and a real memory. Just like we were talking about before with Future Pace. Do this to yourself as well. Do not only get good at persuading others. Persuade yourself. Have control over yourself. Lead yourself. This is a key way to go ahead and do it. Next, we have increased work capacity, 5K per month closer. I can't work more, I'll burn out. By golly. Okay, a 50K per month closer, they systematically raise the amount of work they can do to raise their income. So there's a way that you can systematically raise your work capacity. Now, if you're making the type of money you want to be making, okay, you don't need to raise your work capacity. But if you're in a position where you just want to make as much money as possible, it is probably going to require you to work more than what you think you should be working. Okay. And the way that you do that is you need to systematically be able to raise the amount of work that you're able to do. And let's just say, for example, your goal, right? Your goal in your mind is I want to make 30K per month working 20 hours per week. Okay. Because that will give me balance, which again, we can talk about how balance is complete bullshit, but let's just say that is your absolute goal. And I'm not going to take that away from you. If that's your goal, that gets you up and gets you up and fuck, I'm ready to go because of that. Fantastic. Now, in order to achieve that goal, oftentimes to have your balance that you're looking for, it is going to take a season. It is going to take a season of unbalance. It is going to take a season of you working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours per week to get to the point where you can have so much skill that you can cut it down to 20 hours per week and make 30K. Like, for example, I'm sure if I just only wanted to make 30K, I could do it maybe working like 10 hours or so per week, like 30K per month, 10 hours or so per week, maybe even less. But the only reason I can do that is because I have 5 years of looking back of just complete unbalance. And because of that, I built up the skills to make that type of money in a shortened time frame. So if you don't have the skills to have the life that you want, oftentimes it's going to take a season of unbalance in order to get the skills as quick as possible. Now, maybe you can get the skills and it's just going to take you so much longer if you want to keep the balance. But if you want it as quick as possible, start living your life as quick as possible. It's going to take a season of unbalance to actually get there. Okay. And then lastly is going to be financial freedom. Okay. 5K per month closer. Making money isn't enough, right? It's not about the money you make. It's about the money you keep, and it's about the plan you do with that money. So 50K per month closer, if they want financial freedom, they have a plan of what to do with their money that gives them freedom to not have to be in sales forever. Most people that I talk to, like, they always have a plan. Like, sales is a stepping stone. It's like fair fucking enough, dude, right? Like sales is a way to make money quickly once you get the skill. So once you have that, like, what do you actually do with the money? Like, what is the actual plan? How are you going to reach financial freedom? So it needs to be specific and actionable. So that is the 3 areas that you need to make sure you dial in to go from a 5K per month closer to a 50K per month closer. And what you should do is you should have a focus and only focus on one of these at a time. And so that means you should have one focus for on the call, one focus for outside of the call, but still sales related, and one focus for lifestyle. And only when you actually hit these KPIs, that's when you move on to the next one. So, for example, you might move through your on the call quicker than you move forward outside the call. You might move through lifestyle quicker than you move through like on the call. It doesn't really matter. You move through it systematically, and only when you hit the KPIs you actually need to hit, that's when you actually move on to the next thing. Again, you need to be systematic about this stuff. And if you're systematic about this stuff, you will only raise your income. You will not lower it. That's what's important. So hopefully this has been helpful. And if you want me to create a custom roadmap for you to get to 50K per month, check out the first link in the description. If not, just leave a comment of your biggest takeaways and let me know, is there anything specific you would like me to do a deeper dive on? All right, let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next video.